Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to this week's session. Okay, we'll get started and of course just jump straight into the charts over here. Last session, which is basically yesterday, kind of midnight to today. There's some volatility in the market, of course, with US President Donald Trump getting in office, right? Policies are being announced, and there's some volatility, of course, related to the dollar itself. Okay, we did see spike down, spike back up. So I think this week you might want to be a bit overall, a little bit more cautious and be patient in terms of dollar related. I think that's definitely something we want to be aware of. Okay. So technicals does give us some clue, but I just want to also kind of highlight that oftentimes fundamental can easily violate the technical patterns, right? So just be aware of that as well, especially for this week. Okay. So having said that, right now if you take a look at the dollar index chart, right, we did expect this pullback, right? And again, very nicely, this pullback occurs in wave of 3. And also very, very nicely confluence where price actually stopped falling, okay, just where that area of consolidation previously was, and then we can see a nice little reaction back up, right? Now, whether this is all it is, and then we're gonna see more upside for the dollar, or is this just the start of the first wave, some sort of a consolidation will follow through, and then one more drop to break up of all the structure here. We need more time to see in terms of what's the price gonna do from here on. Okay, so what I've done over here for the dollar index is I've shifted my bias to being neutral. Okay, we did have a couple of setups yesterday, but of course those setup went in favor of the direction but did not get us in. Okay, so it is what it is, right? I mean, we were bullish on the euro dollar. We didn't really get involved in it. Okay, price went up. We were also bullish on the Aussie yen. We didn't really get involved, and then price just went up, right? So overall, those setups I've actually cancelled them. Okay, and of course we'll just scout out for new trade opportunities moving forward, right? But again, back to the dollar index. That's my take right now. I would say give it a couple of days, see how price is going to develop from here. Then we have clarity in terms of what we look at bullish bias, or we go over to the bearish side of things. Okay, so that's on the dollar index. And of course, if you kind of look at euro dollar very nicely, okay, 1 2 3 came into this area and then kind of nice reaction, right? Yeah, so yesterday we were looking at if this kind of pull back a little bit more, that's where our setup is gonna be, and of course that will be a very nice little trade, but we didn't get a target, right? And as part of trading, you don't get to kind of catch every other move in the market. Okay, now I'm neutral right now. I don't think it's a good idea to be kind of selling this. I mean, short term, yes, that is a possible one. But as I mentioned, I'm a little bit cautious on dollar related instrument because of Trump. Okay. Yeah, so overall I think this one here, yeah, we'll just leave it aside for now. Okay. GBP USD is the one that I think the bias is still pretty straightforward. We're overall still bearish on this. Now, whether wave 3 has completed here, in terms of why completed here, or is it going to be another push before drop, we won't know for sure. Okay, now in terms of fit, we haven't really tagged 100%, but in terms of actual wave structure, that can be concluded as a completed WXY, right? So this one, if we have a setup on the lower time frame to sell it, okay, that can actually be a pretty decent opportunity to be looking out for, right? So of course, internally here, we can see this as a potential liquidity. Okay, If you stretch it out over here, that can also be a potential liquidity, but of course for this to confirm a liquidity, price needs to take out that low, right? So we'll stick to this part of a liquidity over here, okay? And at this moment, price is taking out, the previous swing low, right? Internal kind of swing low. So this can also be seen as a internal break, okay? So at the moment, it's giving us a little bit of a clue that a setup may occur, but not entirely ready at the moment, right? Not like we are able to put a pending order at this moment, but there might be something developing. The only thing I'm a bit more cautious, as I mentioned, is the dollar volatility. Okay, so this one here, I'll keep it on watch, but at the moment, I'm not gonna put in any pending order as of today, right? Just on watch. We'll see how the market continue to develop from here. Just be cautious again on dollar swings, right? Something to note. Aussie dollar here, I'm also neutral at the moment. Okay, this setup here, or I would say this structure pattern, is very, very similar to pound dollar, right? I kind of had the three wave here. Whether this will go up and tag this before coming down, we'll need to see. So this is basically quite similar to pound dollar. The only difference here, of course, is this isn't very impulsive relatively, but pound dollar, this is impulsive, right? So that's why pound dollar, I'm actually more convinced that the bias is bearish, but Aussie here, I'm a little bit more still in the neutral stance. Okay, so that's the take on Aussie. Okay, dollar Canadian still gonna be neutral. You can see that volatility spike, right? I mean, dollar CAD spiked more compared to other dollar because of the Canadian involved in it, right? I mean, Trump and Mexico has something, okay? And of course, Trump and China also have something, right? So that's where you can see the CAD actually had a bigger volatility spike, right? Kind of like break the top, break the bottom, and then just came back to where we were. So I would just suggest this one here, you just stay patient. Okay, just stay patient, stay neutral. Let the volatility play out. Once the market settle down a little bit more, then only we wait for the next clear directional focus. Okay, so this one we'll put it aside. Then we have dollar yen. Okay, dollar yen here, I'm overall still bearish. I would say that this can even be seen as an internal 5-wave structure coming down. Right, so if that's going to be an internal 5-wave structure, then we can expect a pullback eventually, then one more drop, right? Because then that would build into an A, B, C possibility, right? So that's something to note. Fit wise, oftentimes the pullback here, we can just simply expect a minimum 50% mark, okay? Halfway point, okay? So I'm still definitely bearish on this, right? If you can get a corrective pullback, again, depending on your individual setup as well, right? If you want to go down to the lower time frame, you can look for a setup within the key zone. If you are just like, I would like to just swing it, in terms of like the 4-hour time frame, you can actually just decide to set up something like that, right? Okay, obviously risk reward ratio will be very, very different if you kind of like go into a lower time frame, look for an inner setup versus like, placing an order at 50%, and of course your stop here is going to be wider, right? So that's going to impact your risk to reward ratio. But dollar yen is definitely something I would say you want to keep an eye in the watch list, right? Because if this really start to take off, we can see price potentially come back towards this zone, right? About 154, 153. And you'll be looking at trade opportunities around like 157 zone, right? So that's like that's a good like 300 pips. Okay, so definitely something that is worth kind of like keeping an eye on, right? Okay, so that's on the dollar yen side of things. Gold. Okay, gold may build into something, really depends on how price is going to develop from here. Okay, this ideally, if it plays into kind of a liquidity sweep and then this comes back down, right? Breaking this low or even this internal low. That would be great because that would set up an opportunity for us to take the sell. Now, this entire leg up from wave perspective is very, very corrective in nature. This is definitely impulsive. So I'm not too keen in buying where we are at the moment, right? I'm more into the aspect where this would eventually still pull back, right? And that would open up the opportunity for us to sell into it. Okay, so it needs a little bit of time because if I just bring you to like lower time frame, okay, we have our first potential criteria of a liquidity sweep. But for the liquidity sweep to be confirmed, we at least need this here to be broken, right? Which means price needs to come back down, take out the swing low. Then, you know, that corrective pullback would set up for us to take that trade, okay? If price doesn't come back down and take out this swing low and just keeps going, then of course we need to reanalyze the entire setup itself. But that's the closest thing we get right now. Okay, so that's something that we can look into for gold. Silver here, overall structure is bullish, but obviously you can see, right, this move up is not very impulsive relatively. Okay, so that's something that I'm just a little bit cautious about, and I'm not kind of like seeing any clear setup at the moment, right? In terms of like lower time frame, there's really no clear setup to be buying. Okay, there's no clear setup to be buying. On at least on the hourly, right? I mean, if you go down to like the details of things, I think like 15-minute there might be something of sort, but not really into those kind of intraday short time frame, right? So nothing much for me on silver in terms of like actionable trades. But in terms of overall structure direction, I think, you know, it's generally still upside for the moment. Okay, crude oil seems to be coming down very, very nicely. Right now, it's kind of testing the key zone around that fib area where wave 4 would likely be. This move down doesn't really present itself as a 3-wave at the moment. So you may want to be just a little bit patient if you want to buy into it, right? You probably don't want to just jump in and buy now, but maybe some sort of a setup within this area to develop before I kind of commit to the buy trade. I don't have anything at the moment, right? I think crude oil on the lower time frame, there's nothing much setting up right now, but just giving you that big picture wave analysis perspective. This pullback would likely be wave 4 in black, and then we can still expect one more pushback up to complete the 5th wave. Okay. S&P, any sort of a corrective pullback would present itself as a buy opportunity. I think this is an internal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Between wave 3 and wave 5, obviously, you can see the lack of momentum there already. Okay, divergence is building up already. Okay, so I think overall bullish. Any corrective pullback can be seen as a buy trade opportunity, right? If you go over to the global indices, in terms of US market, I think generally S&P and NASDAQ is kind of similar. Okay, we have this broken here as well. So I think bullish, and then the Dow Jones is definitely bullish as well, right? Okay, so kind of like very nice little confluence among the 3 index. Okay, overall we're gonna be bullish on the US as long as we can get a corrective pullback. That will present as a buy trade opportunity. Okay. German DAX bullish here as well. Okay, bullish here as well. So we're kind of expecting 5 wave. Okay, in orange, and then that can also be a completion of the bigger 5 wave in black. Okay, so any sort of a corrective pullback can be seen as a buy trade opportunity. Okay, FTSE here as well. I think overall in that, generally we're just sticking to a bullish bias. Okay, I think very clear, right? Because the momentum is there, right? So any sort of a corrective pullback would just open up the buy trade opportunity for us. Okay, Hong Kong, of course, and China, we're just gonna skip that for now. I think I don't want to focus too much on that. This is Nikkei. Okay, so Nikkei came up and kind of like a little bit of a break there. I think this might opens up an opportunity in the near term, at least for the smaller time frame. Okay, you can see a little bit of a crawler structure here, right? Break that top on the 4-hour. Okay, in the lower time frame here, we can potentially see that as a setup building. Okay, but for the actual setup to complete itself, this needs to come down, take out this area. Okay, pull back, and then we only sell it. Okay, so it might need a little bit of like maybe another 2 to 3 days. But of course, if you are looking at Nikkei, right, then I mean, if generally you're looking at indices, then Nikkei itself might present something within the week. Okay, 2-3 days is somewhere between like Thursday to Friday. That might open up an opportunity. Okay, so that's on Nikkei. Australia side of things, this is the analysis right now that we are holding. So upside, if you can get a corrective pullback, that would be a pretty decent opportunity to look out for. Okay, if I'm gonna pull in the FIT, that would be the view. Okay, so yeah, that's on Aussie. Switzerland. Okay, this one here, definitely don't want to be buying up there. But any sort of a corrective pullback, even possibly the market may come back and retest this low. Okay, if it doesn't, then what you want to look out for is some sort of a corrective pullback. Again, it's all about probability, right? If you see a corrective pullback, you can consider taking a trade here. If you see this bounce is not very impulsive, then you manage it along the way, and then that has the possibility of coming down before the push up. Okay, but I think overall direction is definitely bullish. You don't want to be selling this. I mean, in general, equities market seems to suggest upside, right? So overall, I think in terms of stock market, you probably just want to focus on buy side, right? And then just identify like which market or which equities give you that clarity setup be buying into it. Okay. STI. So STI over here, that's my take, right? We are looking at a possibility of a 5-wave structure, so as a diagonal. This is still currently developing, so it's getting clearer at the moment. If you can get a corrective pullback towards like 3820, 3840, that's a key area to look for a sell, right? Short term at least. Okay. So if you go down to the hourly, right? If you look at the hourly setup, I would, let me draw in a little bit of details, right? That would naturally be a swing high. Okay. This here will be a swing low. Okay. We have a very clear gap, which is basically your fair value gap. Okay. Right now, the market is gonna be consolidating as a 3-wave. Okay, so a little bit of a kind of a combination between wave theory as well as SMC, right? You can see very nice little confluence around that key area. Okay, your fair value gap, and of course your FIT. Okay, if I'm gonna look at it on the hourly in terms of 3-wave structure, it's gonna be something like that. So, if this were to come back up, at least correctively, you don't want to be like just sudden impulse move to the upside. Okay, this would be a nice little opportunity to look for a sell short term from here, right? So if I kind of put in also the Fibonacci retracement, okay, 67 align quite nicely with where that 1, 2, 3 area is, right? So we kind of like clean up the chart a little bit. not to overcomplicate it, clutter it. This would be a pretty decent setup, right? For those of you into like Straits Times Index, this is Singapore market. Yeah. Okay, so that's a pretty neat short-term opportunity that you can keep a lookout for. Okay, I mean hourly time frame, you're just taking targets here, right? This has a possibility of really a three-wave move, maybe back towards this zone. Okay, so you can also even go for like extended targets, right? You can look for like TP1, TP2, manage your trade along the way. Okay, so that's on the equity side of things. Pound yen, short term here, we're still looking at that pullback. Okay, so this can play out as a 1, 2, 3 ABC and then maybe more downside, right? So short term, that's an opportunity. In terms of setup, to be honest, I don't really have something very nice. I mean, is it a valid one here to be buying around that 67? Yeah, in a way, we have the liquidity sweep, we have the break of structure here. Okay. The only thing I'm a little bit hesitant to really place this order is the volatility from dollar index, and the reason for that is from Trump. Okay, and the relationship between JPY as a safe haven, okay, against kind of market uncertainty, right? So that's the only thing that I'm a little bit cautious on placing pending orders on like odd yen and pound yen. Okay, the setup from a technical point of view is pretty okay, is valid, right? As I mentioned, you have all the conditions fulfilled. Yeah, so it's a personal preference, right? If you're okay with it, that's a possible trade, right? I mean, even on odd yen, short term to the upside, looking at this as a possible wave structure here for more downside, right? Short term upside. That's definitely an opportunity available, right? Again, if I go down to odd yen, right, you have that smaller sweep, change the character, you win this one, break of structure, a pullback, and then look for the trade. Odd yen and pound yen very, very similar. Okay, so I think the part here is, again, you ask yourself, are you comfortable taking a yen trade in a week where there are more uncertainty in the markets due to political aspect coming in from the US? Okay, that's the only thing you want to add in terms of like this week. Okay, because on a typical week, probably I'll just be very comfortable in taking those trades. It's just this week. Okay, so again, these are where the context of trading comes in, right? It's not just about technical analysis. It's not just about the setup, but also the additional aspect of like how comfortable you are in taking those trades. Okay. Yeah, but having said all this, it doesn't mean that the trade is low probability, right? It's just that market conditions are a little bit more volatile this week. That's the expectation. So that's something that I just like to avoid. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that's clear. Pound Australia over here, we had this break. Again, this is definitely crawlish in nature, so we're kind of expecting some sort of a pullback eventually. If the pullback gives us our very first wave as an impulse, we'll wait for the pullback here and then we take a short-term upside. Okay? If the market eventually just gonna do something like that, then obviously we just wait for the correction and we sell it. Okay? So this one, give it time, see how it's gonna play out. Because if this is gonna go impulsively, we have everything on the lower time frame. We have a liquidity sweep, we have a break of structure. We just need to wait for the pullback and then we'll take the buy trade in the short term. Okay, so this one here might set up something, but definitely I don't think it's this week. Okay. Lastly, Bitcoin, directional bias 100% bullish right now. We're definitely focusing on that. what we want to see is some sort of a corrective pullback, right? I think that's the idea behind it. Okay, something like this would definitely be an opportunity. Yeah, so probably some sort of a consolidation, and we can see a correction here then upside, right? So key areas are there. Okay, good. Okay, so I see some questions coming in, right? Asking on Euro Pound. Hey, I think this pattern, or say this kind of development, is quite obvious, right? I would put the bias as turning bearish, turning bearish, right? Because yeah, this is definitely not something you want to buy into, right? And this is definitely something you'll be expecting some sort of a pullback, then maybe eventually going up, but at least a minimum pullback like that. Okay. So if we're gonna put in the fit area, I mean, it might be a little bit too early to put in the fit, but you'll be expecting some sort of a 50% pullback. So short term, you want to be looking at the sell, right? So again, you can go down to like lower time frame to look for confirmation. Okay, so of course, from the SMC perspective, this can potentially play into a liquidity grab, given we have some sort of a break of structure to the downside, right? I mean, if this just keeps going up, then this is not a liquidity sweep, right? Because that's potentially just a genuine break. But if from here we start to see the market come down, give you an impulsive break, okay, and then something like that, then this can be a liquidity sweep. This can be a change of character, okay, and then pull back, look to sell, okay, and then that will come right into the higher time frame, right? So that's on the Euro Pound side. Okay, this is Euro Odd. Okay, good. My take on Euro Odd would be expecting one more push to the downside, right? So this is where the wave expectation quite straightforward. Okay, 3 wave WXY. Okay, and internal here is some sort of a flat structure potentially developing. Okay, so I think right now this is the clearest structure that we can expect for Euro Odd. Okay, Swiss yen. Hey, Swiss yen is coming down, tag the 618. Okay, generally seems a little bit impulsive as this is coming down, so we have this big range right now, right? Yeah, I would say you want to give it. I would say you want to observe how price is gonna react off the 618, right? If this can just bounce up impulsively, there's a good possibility will actually go back and maybe retest this top. Okay, as a 1-2 trade. Okay. However, if the market is not gonna be reacting to the upside impulsively, then the odds of this is also possible, right? 1, 2, and then 3. Okay. So I think right now I don't really have like which one is a higher odds because this move down seems pretty impulsive, right? Yeah. So this one probably need to like really see what's next, okay, kind of before jumping into that conclusion on whether to focus on the upside or downside and which one we are expecting, what's the bias, right? I think that needs to give it some time. Okay, do I have a certain strategy for UK Open? I don't really trade session opening. I mean those are definitely like intraday time frame, right? Where you need to go down to like low time frame, 15 minute, 5 minutes. I don't really do that. My personal preference is more like towards swing trade. So a lot of times the lowest time frame I even consider is like H1. Okay. So you realize most of my setup when I talk about it, they're all on the H1 time frame. Cool. Okay, so that's all from me for today. I hope that's clear. Also, giving you some insights. I think generally there's some things that we can keep watch. Just bear in mind of like potential US volatility. That's it. Um, yeah. So that's all for me for this week. Let's see how the market rolls out. Moving forward with Trump getting into office. Okay, and see you guys again in the next session. Okay, so all the best. See you guys. Bye bye.